right, welcome to the KIRO Radio Rundown, the only show big enough, metaphorically speaking, to handle all the KIRO Radio hosts at the same time. I'm Jake Rummel, by day the producer of the Tom and Curley Show, and by night the man who opens the blinds and allows you to look through the Puget Sound's Overton window in 15-minute increments, sometimes less. The big headline on Monday was that Seattle Mayor Jenny Durkan confirmed the speculation of many and announced she won't be seeking a second term. This is her explaining why to Q13's Brandy Cruz.
After a lot of conversations with my family and friends and really thinking about what the coming year holds for Seattle, I've made the decision not to seek a second term. You know, we've been through just a really difficult, challenging, brutal year in 2020. And unprecedented doesn't even come close to what Seattle and the rest of our region and country have experienced. But we're not out of the woods. We still are going to be fighting COVID for the coming months. In Seattle, we've got to rebuild our downtown and our neighborhoods. We've got to bring our economy back. Deliver a vaccine, and continue the hard work on building more equity. I really believe that I had a choice to make. I could either spend the year campaigning to keep the job or spend my energies focused on doing the job. And I believe there's only one right thing for Seattle, and that's to do the job.
G. Scott and Ursula Roytine were on the air when this news broke. Here's what that sounded like.
COVID attacks underlying issues. This is one of them. And it's been an issue here in the city of Seattle. And I think over the last few months, I think the mayor has not done a good job at all. Correct me if I'm wrong. Where's our police chief?
Oh, you mean like
police
Carmen
chief,
Best?
Carmen Best is not here anymore. What happened with what happened down there, quote, the summer of love? What happened down there with CHOP? Hey, let's keep it a buck, everybody.
Okay,
COVID attacks underlying issues, and this is one of them. So you know what? This was good. I'm glad she's not running for re-election.
Okay. But here it's almost okay. So I'm going to say that I'm not surprised. And I think a few months ago I said the summer of love comment, that was it. That did her in. There was just no way that she was going to recover from that. And she really hasn't. I will say that she doesn't get credit for what she does. And I think so much of her problem is a poor style of communication and not being able to get out the word that what she has done. And she has been a moderating voice in term, even though many people don't see it that way, because so many people think that Seattle has lost its way. And I think a lot of that is the city council. So beware what you wish for, because now who's going to take the place of Jenny Durkan? Right. So it'll be interesting to see who comes in as someone who is going to be running for mayor. And I know that some of the council members have talked about wanting to do that as well. So it'll be interesting. I'm not surprised. I'm just worried unless we get a really good candidate. This seems like the worst time to have
a produced piece to let us know
I
that?
know.
Oh, my goodness.
Guys,
know.
you know what? I should just
I know.
I need to. You know how sometimes there's a pitcher during the game and you need a relief pitcher? I need to call somebody from the bullpen because I tell you.
But this just goes with everything else, which is I think that her communication style has just not worked, and I think that a lot of that did her in.
Dori Monson, obviously not a big fan of Jenny Durkan, still raised concerns about who might replace her.
Jenny Durkan, I certainly disagree with her on many, many issues, but with her stepping down, that opens up the door for a true Marxist to try to get control of city government, somebody who would not just cut the police, but try to abolish the police, turn Seattle into the crime capital, maybe of the world. Maybe we can start rivaling places like Juarez, Mexico, if we get the right Marxist in place. A lot of people asked me if I would consider running for Seattle mayor. I'll have an answer to that question.
Still sticking with Dori, we're just going to fast forward about 30 minutes of his show and get to this point.
There's a couple of short answers. One, I don't ever want to be a politician. It seems like the worst job imaginable. And I think that it does corrupt the soul of most of the people who are in politics. And why somebody would aspire to something that is, by its very nature, soul corrupting. I think you got to have something wrong with you to want to be in politics. Secondly, I don't live inside the city. But here's the most important bottom line. I only do things that I am confident I can win at. And I do believe, when I was seriously looking into and getting some significant financial support from the business community, I truly believe that I could have won a gubernatorial race. And a lot of people think that that's just crazy and it's all talk until you go and prove it. But I just don't want to be in politics. But if I'd gotten into the governor's race, I would have gotten in to win. Seattle, there's no way. There's no way. Somebody like me, a free market person, more of a populist who doesn't embrace radical ideology on any side of the spectrum, you can't do it right now in Seattle. There's going to have to be, Jenny Durkan was considered not liberal enough. Jenny Durkan wasn't liberal enough. And here's the thing about Jenny Durkan. She and her partner are worth up to $250 million. I don't know why she ever wanted to take on the grief of being mayor. As I said, I just think there's something wrong with people who aspire to offices like that. Plus, I have way more influence doing my little radio show than I can have as a mayor. So I choose not to run.
John Curley pointed out he doesn't think Dori's alone in his disinterest in the position, though he does start out this clip criticizing Durkan's excuse for not running.
We had the governor running around wanting to be the president of the United States, and that's a much bigger job. That is a huge job, much bigger budget. He was able to travel all around the United States he's on a plane constantly. He was out of office, but still able to keep the great state of Washington running. But the mayor of a town the size of Seattle would not be able to campaign and keep the great engine of Seattle going, to keep the homelessness going, to keep the homicide rate, the drug use, all of that going as she's been able to keep this thing going. So she would not be able to campaign and continue to have the city go into the toilet. So she bails out now, and I'll tell you why. Because she doesn't want the job, and who would want the job?
This was Tom Tangney's immediate response to John, where he talked about his belief that Durkan's plight is similar to another mayor in Seattle's history.
I think that it is a universal truth that you have to keep an eye on the election when you're doing your job. Almost every single House of Rep guy, especially or woman, has to campaign every 2 years. They say it's a 2-year stint, and you spend the second year of that 2 years campaigning for it, that it is a big drain. And I do think that she will, without have to focus also on her re-election campaign, she will be able to use all of her forces to, be the mayor for Seattle for one more time. And also, you take the political component out of it for her. If she announces she's not running for re-election. It's a bit like when Denny Heck said he wouldn't run for governor. If he became governor, if Inslee left and he's a lieutenant governor and he's going to become the governor, he would not run for election. It takes some of the political animosity and steam out of that. So I think it's a smart move. Now, would she have made this if she thought she was riding high in the polls? Absolutely not. But given that it's a difficult situation that she's in, this, I think, was probably the smartest way to handle it.
Why does somebody not do well in the polls?
Well, okay, so here's my theory. My theory is that she is our latest version of Paul Schell. Paul Schell is another mayor who I thought was very smart, great guy. I really liked him, but circumstances overwhelmed him. He was the mayor, if people don't know, during WTO, and all of that. And there are just too many things happening in the overall societal world that he, as a little old mayor, could not overcome. There was a lot of upset. We also lost our, the head of chief of police then too, Norm Stamper. There was the was it the 4th of July? I forget now what. Anyway, they had, that big celebration they always have, and then somebody died. It's like there are big things that happen that are more than just, okay, are we arguing about the budget? Should we give more to schools or less to schools? She was caught up in the historical moment and wasn't big enough to handle it, and neither was Shell. And I think it's a shame, because I think they'd be good mayors in other circumstances. And in these particular situation, it was harder to overcome. And Paul Shell didn't not run. He ran for re-election and came in third,
Right,
I think,
right.
Lost. But I sort of see them as similar. The events were bigger than they bargained for when they became mayor.
On Seattle's Morning News, Colleen O'Brien, Dave Ross, and G. Scott all speculated about what kind of person it takes to be mayor and on who could possibly fill those shoes.
I got to say that some of the things that have gone on lately, I don't think that the city of Seattle wanted some of the things to happen that way, at least the majority. So it's a great communicator, and someone is doing and listening to what the people in this city want.
I mean, who is that? I don't live in Seattle, so maybe,
Colleen?
but I, work in Seattle, so I'm familiar with most of the names out there that typically go for these offices. And I can't think of somebody who doesn't have an outside agenda, who simply wants to be a leader, a uniter, and let the city council worry about the numbers and the potholes.
Right. Good point.
Right? Who?
Yeah. Well, yesterday on the show, we talked about that. For some reason, the text line was blowing up with Dave Ross. And I was like, I texted him back. I was like, I haven't even seen Dave Ross. I don't even know where he is. So I don't know if Dave Ross is going to work. But I also said that Chief Carmen Best, that I thought that would be a great name to throw into the hat right there. So that would be a good idea. And maybe, Colleen, maybe we don't know it. The person. Maybe the person that is the next leader and mayor of this town is a name that we're not even talking about.
Well, Loren Culp is free.
Oh, right.
Oh, Dave,
but he didn't lose
want
the
a fresh set of eyes?
yet, Dave. He hasn't conceded. Therefore, he's still running. So he's not open for another office.
That's right.
So that's the rundown for December 8th, 2020. Once again, I'm Jake Rummel. I also produce, edit, and mix the show with the assistance of the other producers here at KIRO Radio. You don't always have time to listen to every KIRO Radio show, but you'll always have time for the KIRO Radio Rundown. Thanks for listening, and see you on Thursday.